Good evening. I'm Nima, and this is Forum Daily for Thursday, September 1st. We begin tonight with the approval of the new COVID-19 booster shot designed to tackle the new Omicron variant. Health Canada has followed the United States and the UK's lead by approving Moderna's new COVID-19 vaccine. The bivalent vaccine targets both the original strain of the novel coronavirus and the Omicron variant. Until now, COVID-19 vaccines approved in Canada were for only the original strain of the virus. Canada has already purchased 12 million doses of the new shot. Well, it looks like violence against politicians continues to be a big issue, with some of the latest incidents being in Quebec. The province's Liberal Party leader says it's time to review the safety measures around political candidates. Dominic Anglade's comments come after two recent violent incidents involving provincial Liberal members in Montreal, and to the recent threats made against Conservative Party volunteers. Ms. Anglade wants to be reassured that her party can campaign across the province without being subject to violence. Today marks day 5 of Quebec's provincial election campaign. Meanwhile, the trial of a 50-year-old RCMP employee accused of breaching Canada's secrecy law has been delayed by a year. It will now begin next October. Cameron J. Ortis was arrested in September of 2019 for allegedly revealing secrets to an unnamed recipient and for planning to give additional classified information to an unspecified foreign entity. An 8-week judge and jury trial for Mr. Ortis had been slated to begin in Ottawa next week, but after new defense lawyer John Doody took on the case, he asked for time to prepare. In Canada's north, the country's environment ministers have wrapped up their annual meeting in Whitehorse. This is where they discussed plans to move forward with strategies on the management of single-use and disposable plastics. The host Yukon government says the Canadian Council for Ministers of the Environment aims to work together to move the country toward a zero plastic waste model. It says the ministers have also met with national Indigenous leaders and First Nations leaders from the territory to discuss mutual interest on environmental issues. 3 years after leaving the Green Party's top job, Elizabeth May is making a run for it again. The Vancouver Island MP has launched her bid to reclaim the leadership of the federal Greens. She says she wants to rebuild the party into an influential political force. Ms. May is running on a joint ticket with Jonathan Pedneau. He is an expert on crisis situations who has worked in war zones, including Afghanistan. Ms. May is one of 2 Greens who won seats in last year's election. As labor shortages continue to dog Canadian industries, researchers with Royal Bank of Canada are pointing to international students as a possible solution. They are calling for an urgent reset of the immigration process to keep talented international students here to fill those gaps. The report for RBC Thought Leadership says the path from becoming an international student to a permanent resident in Canada is complicated, and the system may be turning away qualified and much-needed workers. Moving to Ontario now, where nursing school programs are reporting a record number of applicants this fall. The Council of Ontario Universities says over 13,000 people applied to a university nursing program this year. This is an 8% rise compared to last year and is up 25% compared to 2018 and 2019. Ontario colleges also received a record number of applicants to nursing diploma programs this year, with more than 12,000. Well, beginning today, consumers in Newfoundland and Labrador will be paying 20 cents more per liter for sugar-sweetened drinks. The tax will apply to drinks including pop, sweetened fruit-flavored juices and teas, and sweetened sports and energy drinks. Chocolate milk is exempt from the tax, as are infant formulas, yogurt drinks, and diet drinks containing artificial sweeteners. The government expects the tax to bring in roughly $9 million a year, and it will be applied on top of any provincial sales tax. Staying on the East Coast, where the first Canadian spaceport is one step closer to being built in northeastern Nova Scotia. Maritime Launch Services CEO Steve Mateer says his company can now begin construction. This comes after his firm met the conditions set out in the province's environmental assessment 3 years ago. The age-old question of whether Mars was capable of supporting life is being investigated by a University of Calgary researcher. Ben Tutolo says his 3-year study will use data from the Curiosity rover that has been exploring the red planet for the past decade. Forum Daily will be right back with a look at investing online and scammers. We're going to be speaking with Elizabeth Naumovski, Vice President of Marketing at Caldwell Securities Ltd, where she's going to unpack the latest threats and scams in the metaverse. So stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. An international investor protection organization is warning against taking investment advice online. The North American Securities Administrators Association is calling on investors to watch out for scams and frauds in the metaverse. The organization says investment opportunities, including virtual real estate, non-fungible tokens, and other fake investment offers, are being pitched on the internet. It also urges against taking any investment advice offered in the metaverse, especially when it comes to crypto and NFT investments. According to a study by Social Catfish, investment scams are the most common scam in Canada. Well, joining us now to give us her advice on how to stay safe when it comes to investing your hard-earned money is Elizabeth Naumovski, Vice President of Marketing at Caldwell Securities Ltd. Welcome back, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Nima. So good to be here.
Now, unfortunately, some people do fall for scams, Elizabeth. So what kind of steps should you take if you are a victim of fraud?
So the first thing what you need to do is stay calm, because people always might freak out a little bit, get really upset. You can be upset, but stay calm. Gather all of the documents that you have, emails, texts, phone numbers, whatever it is. Go to your local police department, place a claim there, and then call or contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. However, if it is a scam of your personality and identity theft, then you have to put flags on everything, and you contact the two credit bureaus, Equifax and TransUnion.
All right, Elizabeth. Now, what do we know so far about the patterns of these scammers? If they fail once, how likely would it be that these scammers would turn around and try to scam you again?
100% likely. They will come back twice. They will come back 3 times. They'll probably come back and say, I am so sorry. You have no idea the pressure that I have. I have a job to do, blah, blah, blah. And they will prey on your feelings again. And they will try to tell you that they'll try to get your money back. But what you need to do is give them a little bit more money so that they have leverage to take your money back. So they will come back again and again and again. So always beware. And the key is to tell people, tell friends, because you want to protect them and you don't want them to become victims of fraud.
And we've all heard the phrase, do not talk to strangers, Elizabeth, but it has some weight, this motto for you in particular. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, of course. So as children, we were all told not to talk to strangers, and we kind of didn't. Then the internet happened, and a lot of people started putting a lot of personal information online. But we were always taught to keep that to ourselves, at least my generation, the generation before, maybe even the generation after. And, everybody talks to me and tells me that they have so many friends online. You don't know who these people are. You have no idea what they look like. You have not met them in person. So they really are not your friends. So don't talk to strangers. Don't give them any of your personal information. And if people call you up to try to get to know you, try to get to some of your personal information, hang up. It's not rude to hang up. And, you look at what's been happening right now with the COVID lockdowns. People are lonely. People are still lonely. Seniors are lonely as well. So if somebody calls up and is very friendly to them, they will open up. So we have to protect people that are going through mental health issues, and a lot of seniors and immigrants as well. So that's very important, not to talk to strangers.
So what are some key indicators of investing scams that our viewers should maybe know about?
So the number one thing is, you are always promised a very high return for little or no risk. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Nothing is free. Nothing is ever just given to you. Everything takes time. So if it sounds a little off, don't go for it. If they are asking you to pay for your investments with a credit card or with crypto, that you can't do that. That's illegal. You should always look up the source, whether it's an investment advisor, whether it's a firm. Go to the IIROC website, Investment Industry Regulatory Organization of Canada. They have a list of everyone who is licensed, when they were licensed, and a whole background of everyone. So, it's that same thing of don't talk to strangers. Do your due diligence and don't just think that it's okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about, we talked about influencers before. Just because someone is being paid to talk about a specific stock or a specific currency doesn't mean that they are an expert in the field or they're licensed. So beware of that as well.
Some very important information there, Elizabeth. Thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Thank you so much, Nima. Have a great day.
Stay with us. We have more news from around the world coming up after a short break on Forum Daily. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now it's time for Forum Daily's weekly market update with Catherine Murray, host of The Buck Stops Here. Take it away, Catherine.
Thanks, Nima. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly market recap. I am Catherine Murray. Well, markets have been under significant pressure this week and continue to do so today. The TSX is down by about 1.6%, NASDAQ down by about 2% once again, really as investors continue to take to heart what U.S. Fed Chair Jerome Powell said last Friday, which is that they are very much adamant that they will continue to fight inflation by raising the interest rates. Now, recall, we've seen a bit of a bounce or a rally in the market over the past number of weeks because investors were believing that we would see a Fed pivot, meaning that the U.S. Federal Reserve would recognize that there has been a slowdown in some economic data, and therefore what they were doing in terms of raising rates to prevent demand from increasing and causing more inflation was actually working. But that is not what we heard from U.S. Fed Chair Jerome Powell last Friday. So the market is really selling off of those concerns that we will see rates rise, and that will cause perhaps a bit of a recession. The key point here, though, as well, is that even if you raise rates, it does not satisfy the global issue we have, which is the lack of oil supply. And therefore, that will continue to be an inflationary impact. So in other words, you could see stagflation. Away from that, we have seen, of course, as I mentioned, significant pressure in the markets. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ have been down all week, every day this week. We've actually seen the S&P close out August down by 4.2%. TSX was down by 1.8% in August. And WTI lost about 9% during the August time period. With respect to the bearish tone, adding to concerns surrounding the U.S. Federal Reserve, we've got global growth concerns. China manufacturing PMI fell into contraction in the August time period. Eurozone, many PMIs were revised lower to about 26-month lows. And although I would say on the positive side, the US ISM did beat expectations, and initial jobless claims in the United States also came in better than expected, and German retail sales surprised to the upside. So bit of a mixed picture, but nonetheless, there is a concern about a global growth slowdown. Also adding to that, many companies during their third quarter conference calls did provide somewhat of a mixed to lower outlook. We also saw many companies announce layoffs, and also we've got a renewed ramp up in China COVID restrictions, with 21 million residents in one area locked down on Thursday of this week. Geopolitical tensions, of course, are also front and center, with the U.S. restricting chip sales to China. That is actually sending huge chip players, NVIDIA as well as AMD, down by about 10% today. And also, from a geopolitical perspective, Taiwan shooting down a Chinese drone. The TSX specifically is seeing most sectors lower today: tech, healthcare, materials, and energy, as well as real estate and financials, all trading lower. Recession risk is on the rise. This, of course, more in focus following yesterday's GDP figure, which showed a slowing. And there, of course, is also more talk and concerns surrounding Prime Minister Trudeau's focus on fossil fuels, and that is at odds with other leaders around the world who recognize the need for more LNG. You can really see this in the Canadian dollar. The fact that we are such an oil-rich country, you would think that the Canadian dollar should be trading higher, particularly when you also have the BOC, the Bank of Canada, likely raising rates 50 basis points next week. You would think that we would see a Canadian dollar higher, but that is not the case because of a policy perspective as it relates to the oil industry here in Canada. We also, of course, had Canadian building permits, which declined dramatically, down 6.6% in August versus a 0.4% drop. That's what was expected. In terms of stocks in the news, a couple to note here. Disney is reportedly considering a membership program like Amazon Prime. Campbell's Soup, they posted a lower quality quarter, with analysts noting that that inflation is likely to weigh on their margins going forward. Shopify did announce some layoffs, or did have some layoffs in August. And also, I would just note that Alimentation Couche-Tard, they reported their numbers yesterday, and the stock was upgraded at National Bank today. That stock's moving higher to the tune of 1 to 2%, so outperforming the broader market. Away from that, what to watch for? We've got U.S. jobs tomorrow. The gain is expected to be 300,000. That follows 528,000 prior. And we're also keeping our eyes, of course, on the Bank of Canada, expected to raise rates by 50 basis points next Wednesday. Nima, that's it for me. A lot to watch. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Catherine. Again, that was Catherine Murray, host of The Buck Stops Here, which airs on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, only on the News Forum Network. Stay with us. We'll have more of today's top international headlines coming up next. The United Nations is accusing China of serious human rights violations. This comes in a long-awaited report examining the crackdown on Uyghurs and other mostly Muslim ethnic groups. Human rights groups have accused Beijing of sweeping 1 million or more people from the minority groups into detention camps. This is where many have said they were tortured or sexually assaulted. The UN report adds the weight of the world body to those conclusions from advocacy groups and media outlets, but it's not clear what impact it would have. China has denounced the assessment as a fabrication cooked up by Western nations. Poland wants $1.3 trillion in reparations from Germany for the Nazis' invasion and occupation of the country. This comes as it marks 83 years since the start of the Second World War. Main ruling party leader Yaroslav Kaczynski announced the huge claim today, which came along with the release of a long-awaited report which looks into the cost to the country following years of Nazi German occupation. He says Poland now turns to Germany to open negotiations, and it claims the German economy is capable of paying the bill. He also says the move would serve true Polish-German reconciliation that would be based on truth. Turning to Ukraine now, where a team of United Nations inspectors has arrived at Europe's largest nuclear plant. This is right in the middle of the fighting in the country. The head of the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency says the real work in securing the Zaporizhzhia plant begins today. There have been reports that Russian mortar shelling led to the shutdown of one of the plant's reactors by its emergency protection system. But Ukraine and Russia have both accused each other of shelling the area around the complex, raising fears of a nuclear catastrophe. All right, well, meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be attending Saturday's funeral for former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev died this week at the age of 91. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says Mr. Putin won't be at the ceremony, and this is because of scheduling issues. But he says the president visited a Moscow hospital today to lay flowers at Mr. Gorbachev's coffin. Some good news for crisis-hit Sri Lanka. The International Monetary Fund says it has reached a preliminary agreement to provide $2.9 billion US over 4 years to help the country. The IMF team visiting Sri Lanka said the agreement is subject to approval of IMF leaders, and it is contingent on financing assurances from Sri Lanka's creditors. Sri Lanka is facing its worst economic crisis in recent memory. The economy is expected to contract by 8.7%, and inflation has exceeded 60%. Rising COVID cases in China has the country putting some 21 million people in lockdown. They have been ordered to stay home in the southwestern Chinese city of Chengdu following a spike in cases. Flights have been suspended to and from the city, which is a major transit hub in Sichuan province, as well as being its governmental and economic center. Under the rules, just one member of each family who can show a negative virus test within the past 24 hours is allowed out per day to buy necessities. In the EU, the European Medicines Agency is recommending the authorization of 2 coronavirus vaccines made by Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna. The EU drug regulator said the 2 messenger RNA boosters offered protection against both the original version of COVID-19 and an early version of the Omicron variant. The agency says adapted vaccines will help maintain protection against the virus as it evolves. Coronavirus cases and deaths have been dropping for weeks on a global scale, but researchers expect a surge in hospitalizations and deaths this winter. Well, it looks like Canadians will be one of the first to access an edit button on Twitter. The feature is going to be made available to Canadian subscribers of Twitter Blue, which is the company's paid subscription service, as early as late September. Subscribers can edit their tweets, add or remove tags, and reorder attached media, all within 30 minutes of publishing with the new feature. The rollout comes as Canada looks to regulate tech companies and while pressure is mounting to address online harassment. Avril Lavigne is the latest entertainment industry personality to receive a star on a stretch of sidewalk running down Hollywood Boulevard. The Napanee, Ontario native's career benchmark came as the 37-year-old celebrates the 20th anniversary of her debut album, Let Go, which launched her career with the single Complicated. Ms. Lavigne says she hopes her star will inspire the next small-town 16-year-old who, quote, comes to Hollywood one day full of hopes and dreams. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca, and make sure to follow us on our social media handles. Take care, Canada. We'll see you next time.